Mr. Capellos, as Mr. Karapidakis just mentioned about investments, about the time frame, you all come from one of the biggest companies in Greece, and you did receive megawatts in the tenders. And what you have ahead of you now, is a plan for completing those projects. We're one of the very few companies that has now the difficult role to manufacture the batteries, which is very challenging. How do you see that from a manufacturer's point of view? There are many challenges. Could you tell us, how you deal with them? Thank you very much. And I'd just also like to thank the organizers of the forum. The history of batteries is something that's fairly new for the market, and because I've been in the market for a number of years in the renewables market. And it kind of reminds me of when the PVs came into play back then, and this is the case now for batteries. Of course, the market now is a lot more aware and experienced because it already has the experience of the electricity market and the renewables market. Back then, we didn't know how a project is developed. We didn't know who manufactures that project. So there are some analogies to that even today. The first one is that we have the equipment, and the equipment is the battery system, which is at least 70% of the investment. Then you have the cost of the EPC, and then the cost of the interconnection. These are the three constituent elements of the capex of the manufacturing of the battery. From that, for EPC in Greece, there are probably not more than a couple of EPC contractors with experience in large-scale projects. And this is experience that they probably don't have from Greece. And so an issue is who's going to manufacture these projects, because normally the companies that provide the equipment are not the same companies that are going to provide the EPC. So that's one issue. The other issue, which puts a risk, is the risk of revenue. And this was detailed by Mr. Piskas. This is also another unknown factor, and it can be solved with the price that somebody's been given through a tender, where you have a fixed price for 10 years, and you can base your models based on the strategy that you have for your investment, whether there's how long term it is, whether it's for 20, 25, 30 years, and you can use different studies from different suppliers. So if you look at these forecasts, you will see that there's a great degree of variability, and therefore the reliability, they are reliable, but for an investor would see that it's something that carries a much greater risk. Therefore, and also these prices are the result of whether the national plan is going to be implemented, or is going to be implemented partially, or whether another model is going to be implemented. Therefore, there's a series of assumptions that creates a higher risk. And the third element that you have is, of course, financing, as Pantelis mentioned earlier. For batteries that do not require any financing, they should go direct to market. The risk there is whether there will be a bank, because we're talking about Greece, because in the UK these things might be more advanced. It might be even the first country that went ahead with batteries, and which probably has a lot of experience. It can take the risk to finance batteries that go directly and operate as merchant assets in the market. Therefore, their participation in a tender is for a bank. It's a guarantee and also a way of managing their risk. Now, if we look at that on a more practical level, the issue of the time frame. For us, the time frame, we believe that it is feasible. We do think that September 2025 is feasible, but under certain conditions. One of them is that, first of all, we still don't have any connection terms. First of all, we need to receive connection terms from Grammi. We need to update environmental and all the other studies and have these submitted to Grammi and wait for Grammi to give us connection terms. And then get connection terms. All this takes time, and then once you select a person, then there needs to be another tender for the EPC contractor. But we said there are not many, and that carries an additional risk of finding someone who can actually do the job. And then the issue of manufacturing of the equipment. The companies talk about 6 to 9 months of delivery time. If you kind of add all this together and you talk about the terms of connection, having them at the beginning of the year, and then of course is the time for manufacturing. Of course, that's sort of fairly easy. The most difficult part is the part of interconnection, which normally has some kind of delay. The issue of infrastructure is a lot easier. So the manufacturers somehow control the delivery is more variable. So if we add all this together, we see that the time frame for September 2025, we just see that that's a little bit tight. Anything that goes wrong, anything that's slightly delayed, that's going to create a problem, because it's not about being in September 2025 to be at a state of readiness. It's to actually have a battery that's ready to operate. So from the moment that you're ready to the moment that you can actually start the project, there can be 2 to 3 months. So it's very important that we started with the issue of storage. We're talking about standalone batteries, but as Apostolo said, we also need to talk about behind-the-meter systems. These need to go hand in hand. It's important that we have this new scheme for the 1 gigawatt of standalone batteries, and I think it's one of the biggest in Europe, so I think it's the second after the UK. Germany has smaller battery schemes, and that's why we're one of the companies that are being active in the sector, and that's very good for the country. So there is optimism, there are challenges, and we're here to kind of work on them and deal with them. Mr. Biscuit talked about the return on investment. How do you see that? Is it important for someone to be a big company that can leverage also other leverage other synergies to achieve a better return on investment? In order to playing a leading role in batteries is a strategic choice. We've got our models. We do have the return that might not be the one that we would like to have, but as Pantelis said, one looks at certain models of how the market is going to evolve in terms of cost. Now we have, of course, the reduced cost of lithium, and therefore the prices that have been used in the models are now much lower. That was taken into account. Therefore, we think that it's very important that we need to be in that market as a group, and this is also going to have an impact in our general portfolio.